It was just one of those days. Divisional games are like that, though. I know a lot of people are thinking about jumping off the Walt Whitman Bridge, but it happens in divisional games. Sometimes the best team, the better team, doesn't win these games. It just happens.
Welcome in, everybody. Live post-game show. Marc Farzetta, Derrick Gunn, Devan Kaney. John McClellan will be joining us just a little bit later in the show. Welcome into the JAKIB Media YouTube channel and those watching us on 6abc.com. I understand kind of this time of the year between Thanksgiving and Christmas, we're all on like some kind of time warp. Did I miss something where I was asleep for like 5 years or something like that, and Jalen Reagor became worthy of, 8 targets in a single game, including 2 on what would have been the game-winning drive, what could have been the game-winning drive of a football game, as the Eagles take the L 13-7 to the New York Giants? Devin, I know you put out a poll. We'll get to that. Gunner, your gut reaction to this very boring, dull, no-good, dirty Eagles loss.
How do you really feel about this loss, Mark?
I feel like I summed it up a little bit right there.
I guess you did. Kudos to the Giants for doing what they had to do. But the bottom line is the Eagles did everything they could to give the Giants this game. But on that final drive, your number one receiver, Devonta Smith, should have been your primary target. I understand they've been blanketing him all day. But as your number one receiver, you find a way to wiggle him free. Now, you knew the Giants were going to try to keep everything underneath. But, I guess in terms of the gamesmanship, Eagles are probably thinking the Giants are thinking we're going to look for Devonta. So they catch him off guard. They go to Jalen Reagor down the sideline. Ball caroms off his helmet, almost picked off. They come back to him later on the final offensive play of the game. He's right there at the goal line. He goes up, positions himself, has his body between himself, the ball, and the defender. A good receiver makes that catch. Unless it's an icy, snowy day, you say, okay, might have slipped through his hands. A good receiver makes that catch. There's a 50-50 chance. He's 50%. He might get stopped at the goal line, game over, or he could back his way to the end zone. He's the hero for the day.
That was a good receiver, right? That was a good receiver, right?
And I emphasize the words good receiver.
Yeah.
Okay. He's not a good receiver. And why you went to him in those situations, I don't know. The fact that Dallas Goedert was basically a non-factor this entire game. Devonta Smith was a non-factor for most of the game. I don't know what they were doing. It's funny. We were talking about this on the 97.5 pregame show. And, people were calling and saying, do you think we need to see Jalen Hurts throw the ball more to find out if he could win a game if he has to throw the ball 30, 35 times a game? As of right now, no, we don't. You got to keep him within that 20 to 23 range because, as you saw, very indecisive with the ball. He served up 3 interceptions. We gave him kudos forever for being a quarterback who protected the ball very well. He did not do that today. The Eagles, in a rare occasion, lose a turnover battle 4-0. Boston Scott, who doesn't fumble, coughs one up. It was just one of those days. Divisional games are like that, though. I know a lot of people are thinking about jumping off the Walt Whitman Bridge, but it happens in divisional games. Sometimes the best team, the better team, doesn't win these games. It just happens.
I mean, a crucial game, though. You have to win this game. The Giants are not a good team. They should not have won today. We literally handed them that loss. And I know Jalen Hurts is getting a lot of heat. But I also think we have to go back to play calling. I mean, the fact that, Reagor had 2 receptions. I don't know if my stat sheet's updated here.
Right.
Goddard, we barely saw him. Devonta Smith, barely saw him.
Right.
But that aside, in those final minutes, especially, why are you not running the ball down the field? Why are you throwing it? Especially when Jalen Hurts has thrown 3 interceptions already and everyone's fumbling the ball left and right. It just is mind-blowing. And then on top of that, there are also the penalties from the first half that killed us, where we came up with 0 points when we could have had a touchdown that was called back because of Nate Herbig, who was in for Jason Kelce. It was just frustrating moment on top of frustrating play call, on top of mistake after mistake that should not have been happening. And I have no words right now. Just pain, just total pain.
Hey, Devin, just to answer your question, Dallas Goedert, 1 reception, 0 yards. Jalen Reagor, 2 catches, 31 yards. Devonta Smith, 2 catches, 22 yards. Greg Ward, who I've been screaming, he should be in the slot instead of Jalen Reagor. 0 catches, 0 yards. Now, I understand you've built yourself the last 5 weeks now as a run team first, and understandably so when you consider they ran for 208 yards against a poor run defense once again. But you have to broaden the horizon in terms of pass catchers. And why Greg Ward is not even hardly getting looked at is beyond me. The only time he got looked at basically was the play on the goal line when they were at the 1 yard line.
Yeah,
I thought they should have been looking for Devonta Smith. That's your receiver. They go to Greg Ward on that play. It's an interception. But outside of that, I don't understand why Greg Ward, just like I was screaming the first half of the season, why is Boston Scott in the witness protection program? All of a sudden he comes out. Everybody loves Boston Scott because he's picking up 4 or 5 yards a carry. Greg Ward, just a couple of years ago, we used to call him first down Ward because every time he catch a pass, it was for a first down. Now, in this offense, he can't even get on the field. Jalen Reagor is a bust, Howie. I understand you got to play him. You're force feeding him down people's throats because he's a first round pick. I get that he's still a young player. You're still trying to develop him, but more importantly, you're still trying to win games. And if he's going to be a part of your passing game, Greg Ward is a better option in your passing game right now than Jalen Reagor is.
And I would agree with that, except today that's a difficult argument to make when the only time he was targeted, the ball went through his hands at the goal line. But to that point for a second, why are we looking at Greg Ward in that situation, in the most crucial situation, goal line situation, when you need someone to step up and make a play? And I like Greg Ward. I'd rather have him than Jalen Reagor. Don't get me wrong. But you're right, Gunner. Why aren't you looking at Devonta Smith in that scenario? If you're going to run a strict rollout where it's easy to set up the mismatch defensively, why not put your best receiver in that position to make that play? And better yet, after the game, you see the tweet out there from Jeff McClain of the Inquirer saying that Devonta Smith was flat out pissed off after this game and threw his helmet that he wasn't targeted once on that final play or in that final series. And then time and time again, you see another couple of looks go the way of Jalen Reagor, and he comes up 2 drops on that final drive. So if a coach is always going to try to sell you, and I have no doubt whatsoever, Nick Sirianni will say something to this effect after the game, and we'll hear from John McMullen later when he tells us, but you always try to put your best players in the best position to make plays. I didn't see that on this particular game. And if you want to talk about the type of game that Jalen Hurts had, and we'll get plenty of that because he made his own mistakes. But overall, head coaching-wise, game plan-wise, I didn't see anything done to try to help out Devonta Smith. I didn't see anything done to try to help Dallas Goedert. I didn't see anything really out there trying to help Jalen Hurts when he was really struggling in this game. You eventually made the change to start getting back to run-first offense, which took all of a half to try to understand again, even though that had been working for you all throughout the entire last 4 or 5 games. Right. And when you finally got back to that point, you actually started to reestablish yourselves as that team again and help things out as a whole, offensively speaking. That's when the ball started to move. Jalen Hurts, you know what? You want to be a one-read guy and run? Fine. If that's the way we got to go through this season until you continue to mature as a quarterback, then let's do that. But if you're going to continue to struggle and make bad throws, then we're going to have to continue to rely on that run to take away what might not be the best possible position for you to be in, which is to bring this team back by throwing the ball.
There's going to be times when somebody out there is going to take away the Eagles' run, and Jalen Hurts is going to have to beat them through the air. But when you're only throwing the ball 18, it's a good bad scenario. When you're throwing the ball 18 to 23 times a game and you win, everybody's happy. Mm-hmm. If you're losing and you're only throwing the ball 23 times a game, and you have to elevate that to 35 times a game, and you get a similar result to what you're getting now, well, that's because he hasn't had any experience at this level in throwing the ball consistently 35 times a game. Mm-hmm. So it's going to happen. You may have more mistakes than what we had today. So he's got to get a better opportunity to look and read defenses, because I thought the Giants' passing defense played exactly the way I thought they would. They weren't going to let the big guns beat them. The Giants, say what you want to say about this Giants defense. Yes, they're porous against the run, but the Giants have some pretty good corners and some pretty good safeties. And they play pretty good pass defense. They're aggressive secondary, and they play pretty good pass defense. All right, so Jalen Hurts needs to see more of that, and he's going to see more of that. It may not happen this season, but he's going to see more of that down the road in his career. You got to get used to that. You've got to adjust to that. There are a lot of quarterbacks in the National Football League that go through similar things, what Jalen Hurts is going through right now. But Jalen Hurts is a quarterback that's still evolving compared to quarterbacks who are established or who are given an okay sometimes when you have an off day. It's just a bad day at the office. Right now, Jalen being in the evaluation process, every game's an audition for him. Eagles trying to decide what does his future hold with this organization. A little bit different situation right now for him. But he may have another scenario this year where somebody's going to stonewall the run, and they're going to say, okay, Jalen, let me see you beat us. Because if I'm the next team that plays, Jalen, I'm bowing up against the run now. Because I saw this guy was indecisive with the ball today in crucial situations, and I want to see if he can beat me with his arm. So I don't care if it's the Jets. I don't care if it's Washington. I want to see you beat me with your arm. And then if you start beating me with your arm, then we'll adjust back. You can have the yards on the ground as long as we defend the pass well.
Well, on this show, we always talk about, improvements, adjustments, and we're finally seeing that. And then we started talking about maybe some consistency. Maybe we keep improving. We keep making these adjustments that are working for us. And I felt like today the key word was regression. And definitely in Jalen Hurts' play. But I also think as a head coach, you need to recognize when something's not working for your quarterback and change the game plan according to that. And I think that there was also regression in play calling from Nick Sirianni, because when we saw Jalen Hurts couldn't throw the ball well today. He played horribly. But when we did see him use his legs and do what we know he does best, he still was able to move the sticks. So the fact that didn't happen until late in the game, and it was too late. And then we didn't even keep calling plays that helped Jalen Hurts out. So as much as this loss is on not just Jalen Hurts, but the entire team, I also think Nick Sirianni needs to learn to adjust the game plan when Jalen Hurts is clearly struggling out there.
Mm-hmm. I do want to remind people, of course, live post-game show is brought to you by Ocean Casino Resort. Go for the live shows. Go for the win. So when we look at this, do we look at play calling more, or do we look at Jalen Hurts more in terms of, and I know, Devin, you're looking for people online right now on Twitter to vote in your poll as to who you put this loss on more. Is it more on Jalen Hurts? Is it more on Nick Sirianni? You can even look at Jalen Reagor or other, famously, when people want to fill in their own answers to that question. But if you are evaluating Jalen Hurts throughout this entire process, one thing that a coach can't do is not turn the football over. And one thing a quarterback that is trying to become a franchise guy, or at least make his claim in the NFL as a franchise guy, one thing he can't do is commit bad turnovers. And the first one we'll get to, because I know this is a big sticking point for people on social media, the first interception. Mark Schlereth, the color analyst for Fox Sports, alluded to a pass interference. I think it was Watkins on the play, Quez Watkins, who was turned around, and the ball or the camera never really followed it, so you couldn't see it until they were going to show a replay, which they never did. They gave you a blurb, and I believe the third quarter as part of a pulse package, which is just, hey, here's the mistakes of Jalen Reagor and the Eagles offense. All right, Jalen Hurts and the Eagles offense. So you never really saw the penalty, or you never saw the interception and how it played out. The second one, Jalen Hurts. Okay. Greg Ward should have caught a ball for a touchdown. I'm not about to hinge the offense's success on Greg Ward. So Greg Ward did what you would expect Greg Ward to do in that situation, which is not make a clutch play, unfortunately. If he would, you would see him a lot more throughout this season. The last play on that series in the red zone is inexcusable by Jalen Hurts. And I'm a guy who's rooting for Jalen Hurts, wants him to be the franchise guy, is really hoping he can be that guy. He's at least earned next year to this point for me. But man, it's third down. To not throw that ball away and at least take 3 points on that play, inexcusable. And then the third interception, drastically underthrew. And I can't believe I have to say his name again already. Jalen Reagor, who I have no idea why, again, he got 7 targets in this game. But he underthrew Jalen Reagor on that third and final interception. The fourth turnover was obviously Boston Scott's on their second to last possession of the game. But play calling wise, you still have to step up as a head coach and a play caller, Nick Sirianni. I do blame Jalen Hurts when I look at those interceptions, but Devontae Smith not having any plays run in his direction. The fact that he only had, I believe, 4 targets throughout this game when Jalen Reagor gets 7? How does that make any sense? If you're Nick Sirianni, you then have to evaluate it and say, all right, best players in the best possible position to make plays. Who's not making plays? Who's not in that position? How do I get him in that position? And that's Devontae Smith. The fact that he didn't do anything to try to help that wide receiver, to help out his quarterback, is just also, just like interceptions, inexcusable as a game planner and as a play caller.
The only way you justify Devontae Smith not getting more targets is if the Giants doubled down on him. And obviously the Giants were committed to not allowing Devontae Smith to beat him. Well, somebody else has to step up, whether it's Dallas Goedert, Quez Watkins, Greg Ward. Somebody else has to step up. Your coaching staff has to identify who's our next guy, who's the next man up. What mismatch can we get to have success in the passing game just to loosen that Giants defense up just a little bit? And that person was never identified. But at a crucial point in the game, their final Eagles drive of the game, they had 2 golden opportunities to retake the lead, and both plays went to a guy named Jalen Reagor. And in both cases, Jalen Reagor failed to convert.
And that's a problem, especially on that final possession. Look, the final possession for the Eagles, he's got the ball in his hands. Would have been possibly a touchdown, him going into the end zone. Most likely would have been a touchdown. He had both hands on the ball, a little bit of hand fighting between him and the defensive back. Most likely would have ended up, if he catches that ball in the end zone, to kick the extra point, the Eagles win the game. The last one, he catches the ball around, if he catches the ball, he catches it around the 1-yard line with still a chance to score. If he catches the ball, maybe he falls back into the end zone and they got a touchdown. It actually reminded me of the J.J. Arcega-Whiteside play from about 3 years ago against the Lions, where he would have come down just outside the goal line and then maybe crossed over for the game winner. Jalen Reagor in the exact same situation still can't catch the football. You're a first-round pick. Even if you wanted Justin Jefferson, he was probably most likely still going to be a first-round pick. To me, not making that play is just beside me. It's not Greg Ward. It's not like a quarterback, changing to a wide receiver and then barely getting a look in the NFL. It's a first-round pick wide receiver that comes up with 2 huge drops on what most likely would have put you over the top to win the game. Either one of those plays he makes, Eagles most likely winning this football game.
But it also comes down to who's making the decision to target Jalen Reagor and not what I want to know what I want to maybe John McMullen will have more insight into this, because I want to ask Nick Sirianni, what is the logic there? You know, why, when you can win this game, not just one time, multiple times at the end of the fourth quarter, why time after time you keep going to the wrong person when you have incredible players like Devontae Smith? And then on the second to last drive in the fourth quarter, when I believe it ended on a fumble, I ended up muting the TV at one point and was just watching based off D-Gun's reaction, which was kind of amazing. Because I'm a crazy Philly sports fan. That's what I do. But we still had a bit of time. I think there was over 2 minutes left and we were throwing it, which just run the ball. It's working for us. Have Jalen run it. It's the one thing that allows him to move the sticks. And it's just those mind-blowing play calls that are still so frustrating to me. I'm not taking anything off Jalen Hurts. I think he still had a horrible game, but it does just make me question Nick Sirianni a lot.
See, people want to scream at Jalen Reagor for being a first-round pick. You got to scream at the organization for identifying him as a first-round pick. Right. Because a lot of outlets identified him as a second-round pick. I don't blame Jalen Hurts for being what he is. He'll always go down in the annals of Philadelphia Eagles history and the NFL history books as a first-round pick. But I have to question who decided in that draft room that at that particular moment in time, Jalen Reagor was your best option possible for a wide receiver when there were so many other candidates on the board. I for the life of me, I still sit here and I don't get that one iota. I understand people are frustrated and angry with Jalen Reagor. I get it, but he didn't make himself a first-round pick. Your organization made him that first-round pick. So here's another in a long line of inconsistent picks from this Eagles organization. And then we have to sit here and watch other players excel elsewhere, and basically our stomachs churn because they were right there for the taking. But, oh, no, we decided to go in another direction.
And that's what's unfortunate about this game in particular is that you were still waiting, no matter who was out there, whether it was Nick Sirianni's play calling or whether it was Jalen Reagor just stepping up making a play for you, or it was Jalen Hurts actually trying to make a big play for you as well.
Right.
You were still waiting to see that guy step up. Like we've watched games, actually the game against the Giants last year, like a Financial Field. Eagles were terrible throughout that game and pulled out the win. That was the game that I remember looking back on and go, okay, I know there's no moral victories, but are there moral losses? Because I know they won this game, but it still felt like a loss. This game with a younger quarterback, a more inexperienced quarterback, your offensive line hurt through the majority of this game. Jason Kelce missing a significant amount of time. Nate Herbig going in there, getting 2 penalties called on him that really called back big plays. That's a little bit of things you have to take into consideration when evaluating this game. If they would have won this game, my feeling would have been like, wow, that was an awful three and a half quarters of football. But they pulled it out with more than that. 59 minutes of football that was terrible, but they still pulled it out in the end. Good for this team that's still growing, learning each other, and trying to make things happen. But that game last year against the Giants had a very similar feel to it, although they won. This game, if they would have pulled it out, it still would have felt a lot better about this particular victory. Unfortunately, you're looking at guys that have been disappointing. It's not like Jalen Reagor all of a sudden had a bad game. Jalen Reagor basically wasn't part of the game plan this season, and then all of a sudden showed up in this game to get targeted 7 times. When you're tight end, when your number 1 wide receiver, Devontae Smith, are they double teaming both these guys? Are they triple teaming both these guys? Last time I checked, there's only 11 guys you can play with. So for me, how are one of your playmakers not making those plays? How come I didn't see even a screen attempt to Boston Scott in this game? How come I didn't even see a bubble screen attempt to Devontae Smith to try to get him off the line of scrimmage? Quez Watkins, even that, trying to work that in. For me, there was just a number of things that I was waiting to see that I never saw from Nick Sirianni when nothing in the passing game was going for you. When you saw a guy like Jalen Hurts continue to struggle throughout this game and not make good throws just to get his confidence up in case it came down to a play like this or it came down to a series like this. There was nothing done throughout this game to say, you know what, Jalen Hurts, we're going to get you going right here. Or Boston Scott. It was all about the run game, which is good for the most part. But when you have a quarterback struggling as much as he was, you just can't continue to run the football. I know a lot of times we call for that, but every once in a while, you got to get him going offensively speaking when it comes to throwing the football. And he was there making plays for you in the last minute of this game. His wide receivers ultimately didn't step up, but maybe you're not in that position if you balance things out a little bit more throughout the game.
I have to give the Giants a little bit of credit in terms of what happened in this game overall. They get a slap in the face, and it was a needed one. They fired their offensive coordinator on Tuesday, so now everybody's on alert. Now all of a sudden, word is starting to slip out that Dave Gettleman, their GM, could be on his way out. So now everybody's thinking, okay, our jobs are in jeopardy from the head coach on down to the last guy on the roster. So in steps Freddie Kitchens, who had success calling plays for the Cleveland Browns. Your head coach, Joe Judge, says, from now on, I'm the offensive coordinator with help from Freddie Kitchens and other minds pertaining to the offensive side of the football. So they're coming off a short week, after a bad Monday night loss. They're coming off a short week, and you don't know what to expect from this offense. Now, the offense didn't look much different from what we see, but what they did was they played with a little bit more energy. It was a division game. Everybody's kicking them to the curb. Players know we're auditioning for jobs. Coaches know we're auditioning for jobs. And they hung in there. The Eagles should have won this game 21-13, to be quite honest. They should have won the game at least 21-13. But every time the Eagles gave the Giants another ray of hope, and Mark, you hear me say this all the time, when you're playing a team that you're supposed to beat, you can't go into a fourth quarter allowing that team to think that they have a chance to beat you. Yeah. Because 50% of the time, something's going to come back and bite you. And lo and behold, they let this team hang around. It was still very much in the taking for the Eagles in that fourth quarter. They scored a touchdown finally at 14:55 of the opening quarter. First play of the fourth quarter, they scored a touchdown. Now momentum's on their side. And they can't get another point. They can't get another touchdown. They can't get another point. Are you kidding me? They turned the ball over. They let the Giants think, hey, we got a chance to win this game. We can break this drought. We can get this fan base, one of the most critical fan bases and media contingents in the United States. We can get them off our backs, if only for a moment. We hang in there. We can do this. And they get another turnover. And all of a sudden, the clock's ticking. We still have a chance. We can do it. Sure enough, it happens. And we're sitting here talking about an Eagles team that should have won by at least 8-9 points, losing this game by 6 points to an inferior opponent.
Yeah. I didn't think
we fully beat ourselves.
Yeah, I would have rather faced Jason Garrett. I mean, I know that might be the obvious thing.
Everybody would have.
But you know who? Obviously, who didn't think that was Joe Judge. By the way, another bang-up job by the broadcast tonight or this afternoon talking about Joe Judge from North Philly. I grew up with Joe Judge. We played basketball together as kids. I'm going to go tell you right now, that ain't North Philly. All right, not for nothing. But anyway, that was some bad information I just wanted to point out. All right, Doylestown, we played Summer League basketball together. Our Lady of Mount Carmel, shout out. Anyway, so that ain't North Philly. But bottom line is, Jason Garrett's offense is something that the Eagles know all too well. If it's not Nick Sirianni knowing that offense, it's certainly the Eagles' defense. The Eagles' defensive players knowing that offense. But for me, it didn't come down to how bad the defense was in this game per se. I mean, you're talking about a game where you allowed 13 points. But when you look at the way that this Eagles offense attacked this game, I can't remember a time. I mean, you really got to go back 5-6 games maybe where it was this dull. Like, it just didn't seem like they had any of that mojo that you really started to enjoy and really started to rely on and on over the last 4 or 5 games here. And that, to me, is very upsetting when you think about the momentum that Nick Sirianni was trying to establish with this offense. And, you got to let those roots grow. Got to let those roots sink in and really attack from that point on as they grow and we all become stronger. This game just felt like those roots were shriveling. And it felt like leaves were starting to fall off this plant, whatever you want to call it, to go with another tired analogy. But for me, I just don't understand how you can go through the last couple of weeks and still face a bad opponent, albeit a divisional opponent, still face a bad opponent. And in the one area where you weren't expecting that much change, you come up short. The defense of this team had a built-in excuse. All right, well, you know what? We got to see what Freddie Kitchens does here because we haven't seen this yet, really. The offense, you knew what the Giants were doing. You knew who they had defensively speaking. You knew what you were up against. And it seems like it still took you a quarter and a half to realize you got to go back to the bread and butter that was running the football before you were able to open up things in the passing game. And then when it came to just making big clutch plays, I still don't know why we're looking at Greg Ward at the goal line when he could have been looking at Devontae Smith. I still don't know why you're not seeing Dallas Goedert get involved in this offense. I still don't know why Jalen Reagor was looked at as many times as he was throughout this game. I'm still struggling after Quez Watkins comes up and makes a big play for you. You barely see him for the rest of the game. So for me, that looks a lot more to the quarterback and more to the head coach and Nick Sirianni when coming to the conclusion that the offense was obviously the bigger problem here as far as this game went. Now, you know, Freddie Kitchens, again, you look at him and you saw what he did with the Browns. But when it comes to this particular game, you knew what the Giants were going to do defensively, and you still couldn't exploit it.
The game plan, if you really want to get right down to it, the game plan was very similar to what has equated to the Eagles' recent success lately. Run the football more than you throw the football.
Sure. Later in the game, though. First quarter. But the first quarter felt like you were calling. It felt like you were watching the game from 5 or 6 weeks ago. But
the big difference is 4 turnovers. That's the whole difference of the game.
Yes, absolutely.
They got the 33 carries. They got their 200-something yards. They kept Jalen Hurts within a manageable passing game. Sure. 23 passes. The only difference, 4 turnovers for the visiting team, no turnovers for the home team. If the Eagles don't turn the ball over, the Eagles win this game easy. There's no question about that.
Yeah, but it's a big thing to take away.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah. You know, what hadn't they done the past few games? They didn't turn the ball over. They were winning the turnover battle. Today, they decisively lost that turnover battle. They lost that battle in critical situations, and the end result is we're sitting there talking about an L instead of a W.
Yeah, no, I mean, Jalen Hurts, something that he's done well, has not been turning the ball over.
Exactly.
It's something that we started talking about a little bit more and more, and then here he is today with 3. So I don't know. Maybe we jinxed him. Well,
that's all the optimism. All the optimism, unfortunately, just made us bow out. All right, when we come back a little bit later in the show, we're going to talk to John McMullen. We'll continue to recap this game. We've talked a lot about the offenses. That's been a big story, and that's where the turnovers obviously came from here, Gunnar, as you were mentioning. We'll talk about the defensive game plan when we come back, Jonathan Gannon, and how he was approaching this Giants offense, considering the game they were coming off of in Tampa Bay. If you want to check us out, make sure you do so on the comments. We'll try to get you involved in the chat as well. You're watching live post-game show on the JAKIB Media YouTube channel and 6abc.com.